budget workshop will come to order. Why don't we stand and salute the flag and
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, one God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
please, John.
Good evening, Chairman Marciano and members of the school committee. I am pleased to present the fiscal year 2017 strategic goals for our budget. Before I begin, I want to thank John McNamee for his countless hours of work assembling this year's budget. For our strategic goals for this year, under curriculum, as you know, we have many curriculum resources that we are extending out beyond just this school year in math, ELA, and science, and the budget reflects that we're going to continue implementing those resources in our K-8 schools. We also want to continue the integration of curriculum and technology in the classroom, so there's a lot of professional development behind that and a lot of hardware that we'll need to talk about. We want to continue the development of the Marine Academy, that interdisciplinary program at the high school, and expand that opportunities for our students. Obviously, we're going to continue our work around RTI, and we are adding some AP and EEP courses at North Providence High School. We'd like to expand our CTE programs at the high school as well, expand the Marine Technology program, also the Tech Ed program, and then also start to think about a health service academy in partnership with Rhode Island College and CCRI. In addition, we are hoping tonight's discussion will help us expand our preschool program, although that particular program will not have a budget impact. As far as technology, we are hoping now to start to put Chromebooks in the hands of our teachers, along with the much needed professional development to integrate the technology into their daily instruction. We'd like to expand virtual high school programs and bring it down to our middle school. And we'd also like to expand our blended learning opportunities at the high school. Right now, we are piloting with 2 teachers. Those 2 teachers want to expand their own classrooms to add other sections. And there are other teachers really interested in getting into that blended learning type of platform. And so with that comes a lot of professional development. As you know, we are involved in the FUSE grant, and they are helping us with that. And then also the additional equipment that has to go along with putting a computer in every child's hands. You can, or you can ask me right now. Okay. Go for it.
The Chromebooks are faculty-based aid professional development. My only, I'm a Chromebook, especially for the kids because of the web-based technology. I just wonder if the teachers need the lab. I don't know the way it's worded.
Those are for the teachers, yes, for faculty grades 3 through 8.
So is that because you feel like they'll just use the Google Docs and they won't need the hard drive capacity?
We're going to do both, right?
You're talking about actually using just Excel and Word?
No, what I'm thinking about is if we purchase the Chromebooks for faculty,
Right.
Then they don't have the access to a hard drive to be able to maintain documents, PDFs, that they're going to have to use everything on the Google Drive. And sometimes, great for the kids, but sometimes there's certain things you have to have a hard drive for. The teachers, like what we do sometimes, would say laptops, but typical for teachers, but Chromebooks more student-based. I would just think about the capacity before we go all Chromebooks to faculty, just as a.
And we talked about that, especially at the high school, Gina, because we were concerned about that very thing. And so we're going to try to repurpose some of the current laptops and make sure that every faculty member at the high school has that type of the Dells that we purchased. Right.
And then all the teachers do still have their regular desktop. Okay. So that desktop's not going away in the classroom, so they will have access to a hard, to be able to store stuff there as well, and access the drive from there.
One of the things that the feature of obviously the Chromebook is that they can access wirelessly to their overhead projectors, their LCD projectors that they have in the classroom, so they can be anywhere in the classroom and actually use that. Right now they're stuck because it's attached to their desktop, and so one of the issues with especially the elementary teachers, they move all around the room and they want that to be wireless. So that was one of the things, an easy, inexpensive way to get that technology into their hands and they could roam around the classroom. So, and then our budget, John, is the new positions next? Or are you going to go into the next thing? Okay. Yeah, I'll just go ahead. You want me to just find it? And then he can go through everything else. Here it is. So we are adding a total of 3 FTEs to our budget. The first one is an ELA/social studies teacher. We have to put another 2-member team at Birchwood Middle School due to enrollment increases. We're going to repurpose a position that's already a math position that exists at the middle school for coaching to serve as the middle school math and science. And this additional position will give us a 2-member team. The tech ed teacher, as you know, this year was funded by the Rhode Island Foundation for the Marine Trades Program. This year, we did have to add it into the budget. There wasn't grant funding available for that this year. And then the school nurse teacher that you actually added this year, those students will still remain at Wayland. So we do still need a full-time nurse at Wayland due to the medical conditions of the kids there. And then an ELL teacher, right now, we need to have a coordinator based on federal regs. This year, we kind of, due to the numbers, we were able to avoid that, and we put that other additional 0.5 FTE into special education. But right now, for next year, we are going to need that additional position. Nurse, you increased it for the remainder of this year to a 1.0. Exactly. It was unbudgeted this year. We did last year.
The one that we hired for Richie, when we added on that extra team, they all had both certs.
And if they didn't have both certs, they were well on their way to getting it.
Right. The
So-
other person that we hired was Richie.
So I'm going to turn the bulk of the budget over to Mr. McNamee, who has done a fabulous job.
Okay, just a little on demographics. We do have a increase in the number of students. In 2015, we had 51 more students. In 2016, we were running at about 38 ahead of the prior year. And I believe that that was pretty much on target with our NESDEC projections. Well, it may wind up leveling off. We had a big increase in the middle school, so we're going to see some bump in the high school enrollment going forward. Our free and reduced has come down a little bit this year. We're at 1,522, which is down from 1,630 last year. So we're continuing to look at that. As you know, with the free and reduced, there is an additional amount of state aid that we get for those students. It's about somewhere between 3,500 and 3,800.
Based on applications filed or applications granted?
It's applications granted, but we also go in, for example, right. Right, but we also have siblings may not all apply, especially at the high school, but we grab those kids and we'll get them into the, absolutely, absolutely. Greystone. Yeah.
It's okay.
That's all right.
Hey, John.
So in the budget, we're looking at increase in expenditures of 4.22%. going from 51,554,000 to 53,730,000. But in that 53,730,000, there's $300,000 that I put in it to fund a part of our deficit from FY15. And then there's another $149,000 that I consider to be the school building project expenditures that we have to put into our operating budget for the current year for that project. So assuming that project does get approved by the bondholders, a portion, at least 100,000 of that 149 would be incurred. The 49 I have in there, which represents debt service on the $500,000 that we got from the small school building authority, the SBA, school building authority, through their shovel ready program. So we had applied for, I don't know, something like $9 million, and they granted us 500,000. City of Providence, I think, got like 11 million or something like that. But, oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, you're 90% reimbursed too. So I put that Ryback is going to, rather than having us advance the money, which we have done in the past, and put a lot of pressure on our own cash flow, we now can borrow that money from Ryback and then pay that over a period of time. So I'm anticipating amortizing that over 5 years. So that's also included in that 53. When we look at the total expenditures and a percentage, if you look at that bottom line, that bottom number, which is probably difficult to read, but it's close to 90% in all years, that represents your salaries, your fringe benefits, your transportation, and your tuitions. So you can see that once you have those out, there's very little wiggle room. Yeah, exactly. On the town appropriation, what we're requesting this year is $634,480, which is an increase of 1.96%. And again, out of that 634, we're looking for $300,000 to fund the prior year deficit, and 149 that's representing the building project expenditures. So we're looking at somewhere around 150,000 or so of actual increase in what I would call recurring expenditures in our operating budget, which is about 0.5%.
Just to recap, 2013, we received less money
In 2012.
than 2012.
That's interesting. That was the year that the mayor, when we got the additional money as a result of the audit, he took away $345,000 the following year because of the all-day K, trying to make a statement.
Gotcha. So we received less. So 500,000, we received an increase of 500,000 in 2014.
Correct.
Then we received
Only an increase of less than 2%.
less than 2%. 634,000 in 2015, again, just 2%.
Yeah, that was the year we requested $1.2 million, over $1.2 million. So we got half of that.
My point is that we've asked for 2% or less increases, so we received pretty much less than 2% for the last 6 years.
Right. Well,
Less than more.
No, what I'm saying is, but we've not, our issue is everybody, I mean, just think about your own home.
but we've had increases in state aid, though.
Increase in
Those-
aid to
but
the
those
town,
are encumbered.
Well,
based on the funding formula, because they're due to us.
here's the increases in state aid. Well, they're due to us, but obviously they're,
Are they
But our
encumbered?
town has not contributed, so the taxes and all that, we can't be blamed for the taxes in the last 7 years.
Correct.
Thank
Correct.
you.
Now, the state aid education increase, how much of that is earmarked and encumbered? It's like charter schools and transportation.
He has that, he was that on that memo. Can I get it?
well, no, we have,
That doesn't represent just 8.74% of free money.
right. There's the increases in the charter school tuition. So when you're looking at, for example, that 19,000,007 figure, We've got 2 more years, I believe, to go through. We'll probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 million, a little shy of 24 million in terms of our ongoing funding. Now, we also have in that categorical funding, high-cost special ed, your group homes. So some of those numbers will fluctuate based on the enrollments that we have and the number of beds on the group homes, et cetera. So
Are those weighted in terms of individual state aid by kid?
it's like so much per bed is what they come up with, but that's separately funded. So the funding formula will be what the governor basically has proposed will probably get funded, but then it's the categoricals that would require some of the legislature to approve those. For example, they'll have the private school tuition, textbooks and transportation. We probably get somewhere around $140,000 to offset about $400,000 of transportation for private and parochial schools. So it's not, it's not dollar for dollar. And again, it also takes into consideration the fact that charter schools are being funded, and we're, in the past, that we didn't have to pay any tuition for voc ed. So,
They have to pay, they take 5 kids.
right.
Now they're paying, they'll take 75 kids.
Right, exactly. So that tuition's about $9,000 a year now, so. So this is what you'll see. I mean, everybody makes the comment you're getting additional state aid, but, it's, well, yeah.
Wasn't not our taxpayers' tax increases, funding the schools.
No, they've been very minimal for the last 4 or 5 years. In terms of personnel, Melinda's going through some of the increases. We're actually looking at a net increase in full-time equivalents of only 2.5. We've eliminated a half a position at the custodial level at central office, and we've eliminated another position on the secretarial, I believe. And we also have in this budget, as we do every year, the HR director.
Administration, 6645. Way down, 14 to 7. FTEs at administration, 6, I assume that's.
Well, we took off, we had our IT guy come out. Yeah. And then 5 would be the HR director going in. Who?
Maintenance person. Director of non-instructional operations.
I heard you the first time. We've already gone through that slide. So on the salary numbers, we're looking at an overall increase of 3.14%, going from 27,430 to 28,291. Fringe benefits are looking at 11,485,000, going to 12,141,000, about 5.71. Well, our health is going to be projected at least a 5% increase. Why? Well, because healthcare are going, well, according to the consultants, we should be targeting 8%. But you also have a lot of these fees that have come in for the Affordable Care Act. So we've seen some increases in that area as well. And then it all depends on the usage too. We've seen some increase in the overall retiree amounts as well too, because you know that their claims will be, although they pay much higher co-share, their claims can be a little bit higher. So we're still going to take a look at that number too. Overall, in that particular category, pension expense on the teacher side has actually come down slightly. Not a lot, but it's come down slightly. And there's probably a little bit of an increase in our workers' comp premiums in there. Those things have gone up probably well over 100,000 in the last couple of years. So there's the pension increase. Co-shares have remained the same at the 22.5%. Transportation, what we did was we're in the second year of our in-district contract. That second year has only cost of living increases, so I've got a 1.5% increase in that, but that may even come down. That could be a conservative number. On another particular contract, I was looking at a 0.8% increase based on a CPI, and I don't think we'll be looking at any fuel surcharge adjustments there. Interestingly enough, our state sped busing, as you can see, if you look at last year's, I've taken out charter and vocational because we can bill 100% for the vocational, and most of the charters have their own buses now, so they don't even take the state busing. So, but this is the first year we could bill 100% for it. So, right, now they won't use it. So we've had, you look at the number of SPED students we have out of district, and we're seeing that there are a large number of parents that will be dropping those children off at the facilities. So you're not seeing for every out of district student a bus, but you still have to look at that because that changes because those demographics change daily. Yeah. Out of district tuition, we are budgeting 58 students under the special needs. We have right now 62 students out of district. We had looked at, when we started this process, there were 58. So we do have 3 students aging out. We're looking at returning 2 students to bring that down, and then we also are hoping that our move-ins will be minimal.
This is why we need to fend off the people who talk about per pupil expenditure. Spending almost $4 million on 58 children who, for whatever reason, have to be educated somewhere else because they're special needs, and if that's in our budget, it's like our insurances and our boilers and our basketball teams, and it's things like that that inflate the per pupil. Because if that were removed, if this whole slide were pulled out, and the charters and the locations and were brought back in, the per pupil expenditure would go down. So how would that happen? Because the division algorithm, the quotient would be less.
And actually, the cost of $4 million, especially if it costs us more to service the in-house because of the level of need they actually.
We got another $1 million in out of district busing for SPED too. Right.
Saving money, we actually increasing that.
No, but my point is, we get attacked for a high per pupil expenditure, while special needs 58 kids, 3.7 million.
And I think my concern at the time, people say about out-of-district placements are costing us money, and they are. However, what they don't realize is sometimes there's such a special need that if we actually try to service all the needs at the district level, it could cost us more because of the level of need. So it doesn't necessarily mean a cost savings every time we bring somebody back. We try to bring back those that we can, but you want to make sure they have the best placement.
And I agree with you on this part, because here's the thing, I know Chris and his team actually have developed programs in-house, and actually that number would have been a lot higher had we developed those programs. And, kudos to the special ed department, because they developed 2 programs just this year that have kept students here at home. And so, even though that number looks like it's never going down, we have students that come back, but then we have students that move in. And it's such a fluid number, it changes every day. I think last week Chris said 2 students moved in. So we've been maintaining around.
Oh yeah, it's more than that. Yeah.
And I have to say this,
That doesn't
since
inflate.
you've been here just that short time, I think we've seen that the things that we can do here to support the needs, we've our food service in town with their friends and their family. And sometimes, we have to go
Right.
to alternative programs and then see what they need, and see what we can provide them so that they have the best support. What we don't want to do is put anybody in danger or any safety issues.
My point is, that's 6,000 per kid. 60 kids.
Well, there's also,
That's not a, and 60,000 per kid. So when you look at per pupil expenditure, okay, so I got a fourth grade class down in Maribel. A part of the per pupil expenditure for the fourth grade class in Maribel is the basketball team, the football team, the insurances, the busing, the out of district. Those 60 kids, it's a false number. That's my opinion. I'm not saying the value of them in or out. I'm just saying a per pupil expenditure which we're held to by your publisher. People who don't understand it, it's a false number.
It's all demographics.
Yeah, well,
At 38 instead of 58,
yeah, oh, sure.
it would be.
Yeah, it'd be less than,
It would be less.
yeah, it's a division algorithm.
Absolutely. You're not saying that
No,
you're in-house.
no, I'm not making a value statement. I'm just pointing out how that inflates per
I
pupil
understand
expenditure.
exactly.
These are the numbers, that whole slide.
And that could actually.
Notice the title of the slide, out of district.
With that number, if that special school could actually use this, then it can bring 5 or 6 more children that was over the course of the summertime that just moved in.
That's 60,000 a person right there.
That's the spirit
The
that
new
we can't
properties
plan
that
it
they're
for.
building in the
Exactly.
town, there's new properties being built in the town.
Oh, yeah.
Increase
Oh, yeah.
exponentially over the next few years.
Oh, yeah.
The story that's on the front page of the news and our story is gonna be connected.
Right.
That number's gonna be a lot bigger. That 600,000 is ridiculous for that.
Condos,
When that condo gets going.
Lymansville,
Absolutely.
that's the one you're talking about.
We're looking at
Oh, yeah.
children that are gonna wind up and if they end up in the special needs department, we're there.
Or overages or anything else that we have.
we also have, we also have personal care attendants that are about $500,000 in our budget as well. So those are nurses that are on the buses and also one-on-one aides that would be needed for some of these children. I think we had, how many high-cost special ed students do we have based on RIDE's calculation this year? Is it 22? It's almost a third of those students were high-cost special ed based on the calculation that RIDE gives us at a $62,000 or $63,000 level. And that number will go to go into our categorical state funding for high-cost sped reimbursement, but you don't know what that number is until the legislature passes what they're going to fund that at too. I understand the funding formula has been changed. Hopefully we'll get some relief as well on that, since there are no dollars, additional funds for that. It's got to come somewhere else. So we may get it one way, but are they going to be taking it out in another way? So that has not been factored into the state aid. Utilities, these are pretty much under control now. Our electric usage has been driven up a little bit. Some of it, I think, is a result that we have more computers that we're using. We are locked into a 3-year agreement. 2017, I think, will be the third year of that agreement. We're at like 9.2 or 9.1, which is a little bit on the high side, but that was 18 months or so ago that we put that into effect. Natural gas, we seem to be, I mean, those rates have been holding. We're locked in at 9.1 per decatherm on that one, so I think we're doing okay on that. Telephone will be up a little bit, and I'll talk about that later tonight relative to the new lease that we're going to enter into. That's probably a little bit higher than it can be because there's some operational savings as a result of this new system that have not yet been factored into that number. And then the sewer and water, we had some big bumps in those rates back in 2015. And they've kind of stabilized a bit. Proposed capital outlays, we've been kind of holding the line on this. We've got about 315,000 in there for technology needs. Security enhancements, cameras is about 109,000 for that. The 149, which I talked about, which is the school building program expenditures. And then there's another 19.5 in there for some school furniture. It brings us to 592.5. So that's the PowerPoint. The detail you have is basically showing that we're looking for that 634 and 185,000 or 0.57 is what would be associated with just the operating side of the budget. So we're hoping that we'll get enough of a surplus in the current year to pay for a portion of that deficit. We did get about $27,000 in FEMA money back from the snowfall. So last year we spent almost $135,000 in snow plowing per our budget. We have budgeted $60,000, so that's also part of that 685 deficit. So we got about 26. We've only spent 12.4 this year, so we'll actually have a negative expenditure this year. So. Oh, we got rain today. Yeah. I hope they don't leak. No, we're going to get a second budget workshop, which will be before the next school committee meeting, and then the vote will take place at the next school committee meeting. We need to submit it to the town by April 1st.
Do we have a time yet? Yeah,
You mean when I'm meeting with you?
when we have to go,
No, when I'm meeting with you, you mean?
Yes.
oh, that's right, I forgot, you have two faces over there. But when-
No,
when you're calling us in John's meeting field.
No, that's usually done in second or third week of April.
Okay,
Yeah.
we don't have a date.
No.
Yeah, they're waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, the school committee will go into executive session.
If we can make sure that meeting's held after 4. I would like to show up, so
For the edification of those, we're going to be in the conference room.
I'll meet with you after, but I can't guarantee they will. No, they meet for the day though.